With the NBA trade deadline right around the corner and this Raptors team being, let's just say not very good, let's take a look at some young players that the Raptors should be / could be looking to acquire. What's up, everybody? It's JJ Buckets. I've told you what we're talking about today, so before I fully get into things, usual drill, you already know, just like the video, it helps it out in the algorithm a ton. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here, plus if you plan on doing any responsible sports betting in the near future, just make sure to check out my link in the description below. So for context, I'm filming this on Tuesday morning. If a deal gets done between then and when I drop this video, fuck me, life sucks. Besides for that, let's get into things. So you'll notice a bit of a trend here in terms of the kinds of players, but the first name I'm going to throw out there is Josh Green of the Dallas Mavericks. Now, in terms of the Mavericks, they're good, but not great. And I think when you have a situation like the Mavericks do, where you have a young star like Luka Doncic that could eventually start eyeing other places and eventually request a trade, you probably want to make any and every move that you think could better the team and better the roster around him and give him incentive to stay. So trading for a guy like, let's say, Bruce Brown could be part of that equation. And for the Raptors, I think Josh Green makes a lot of sense. Again, like the theme with what the Raptors are doing, as we've heard from Woj, and I think it's just obvious to most people at this point, is building around Scottie Barnes. And when it comes to building around Scottie Barnes, I think players like Josh Green are a very good fit. Now, realistically, Josh Green, you can make an argument, either he comes off the bench for you, or, you slot him into that starting lineup and give him a run there, depending on how you feel about the development of Grady Dick this season, I suppose. But regardless, Josh Green, good 3-and-D guy. And you will really see the trend with that, but yeah, good 3-and-D player, could really benefit from playing around somebody like Scottie that does enjoy, obviously creating his offense, and then once it kind of stalls out, kicking out to the perimeter and knocking down shots. I think in general for a Darko offense as well, guys who can be good shot makers from the perimeter are going to be so damn important. So having a player like Josh Green that can do that would be tremendous for the team, and you're probably going to want a bit of a defensive boost as well because you haven't been very good on that end, and I think he can do both those things. So Josh Green, I think, is an easy first candidate here. Sticking with the theme of 3-and-D, let me toss a name out at you that I've already kind of touched upon on this channel, and I've also talked about on Warwich's channel. If you haven't checked out that video, go do so, I guess. Quentin Grimes. So Quentin Grimes is essentially the kind of 3-and-D player that I really think you would love for both Darko's offense and for playing around Scottie Barnes. He is just such a solid, low-maintenance player that can be dropped into the system, dropped into an offense with Scottie Barnes, and you can expect some pretty good results out of it. Now, naturally, the Knicks have, we've had the speculation that he has been available and he's been made available by the Knicks, and we've also had the links to the Knicks involving Bruce Brown, so I don't think you really have to leap too hard mentally to put together why this deal could get done. So I think this is a natural trade that could come together pretty seamlessly. I mean, obviously there's a lot of suitors for Bruce Brown out there, but the Knicks are definitely one of the teams that wants to be a suitor, and I think Quentin Grimes as the centerpiece of that trade return, you could do a lot worse. Let me toss one last 3-and-D name at you because I value the archetype, and I think it naturally fits well into this offense and into an offense around Scottie Barnes. If you couldn't tell by the way I've talked about it to this point, Moses Moody of the Golden State Warriors. Now, if you're the Golden State Warriors and you're sitting there, your season has gone poorly, right? Let's just call it a buck. It's not going well. And you're kind of in the, I don't know how many years, in terms of the exact number that Steph Curry has left, but you're definitely in the back end of Steph Curry's career, right? And I think Steph Curry is still a very good player, and you've kind of shot yourself in the foot with some of the things that you've done, I'd say, in recent years in terms of constructing this team. Obviously, the Wiseman miss is the big one that sticks out like a sore thumb for Golden State, but I think overall it's just been the blending of the two timelines as they've tried to do it. Like some teams have done it successfully, right? Like you can think about the San Antonio Spurs that seamlessly transitioned from David Robinson to Tim Duncan. Sometimes those things definitely work out. For Golden State, I really don't think you've gotten that. And while I don't think Toronto necessarily has the assets left to go get, you know, a guy like Jonathan Kuminga that I think would have otherwise been a nice experiment on this team in terms of whether or not they could have really had him flourish, I do think there is still enough in terms of like a Bruce Brown or like a Dennis Schroeder or like whatever else on this team for Golden State to take a swing on, and maybe include Moses Moody, who could, you know, be a piece that is heavily involved in the Raptors rotation for a long time moving forward. Again, just quality 3 and D guys. You can never have too many of them in this league, especially when your star player is somebody that is a good passer, is aggressive, and will definitely create looks on the perimeter with his game. Having guys on the perimeter to knock down those shots, incredibly valuable, and Moses Moody is definitely one of those guys that can knock down those shots. Switching gears to a different type of player, I suppose. Wendell Carter Jr. of the Orlando Magic is a player that intrigues me, right? Because not only is he in theory somebody that can be a good defensive centerpiece for you, well, at the center position, he is also somebody that offensively, I love bigs that can stretch the court and that can create that extra spacing for you, especially when you have guys that want to attack the rim aggressively, like Scotty Barnes, like RJ Barrett. I think taking any of the extra spacing that you can get in those kind of situations, always incredibly valuable to any team. So Wendell is a name I like, and Orlando has had they've had the rumors out there that Wendell has been reportedly available. I think that may have changed recently. I'd have to double check, but I do know for a fact those rumors were out there earlier this season that he may be getting shopped around. And if he's getting shopped around, if you're Toronto, why not take a swing and just see if you can put something together there for like 2 reasons. One, who knows if Jakob's staying on this team, right? Like, I think in theory you want to keep Jakob. I've been on the record saying that when I did the video of Warich, but you never know. Jakob has definitely said he doesn't want to be on a rebuilding team, and yeah, you better believe the Raptors are definitely closer to a rebuilding team than they are to a contending team. So maybe plans have changed, and despite the fact that you so recently acquired Yak, maybe you take a offer from somebody like an OKC or something like that, and you know, you ship him elsewhere. And in that case, right, like you have Wendell Carter to fill in that spot for him. Or alternatively, I mean, look, regardless, the depth of the center position on this team has been bad, obviously, since the Christian Koloko injury derailed kind of his campaign and potentially his career, which, Koloko, wherever you are, I hope you're doing well. But ever since that happened, it just, the Raptors have kind of been exposed a little bit as being thin at the center spot, especially with Precious traded and all that stuff that has happened. You need reinforcements at that position, and I think Wendell, you could do a lot worse than having him either off your bench or potentially, if you make some other deals, as your starter, kind of moving forward and letting him flourish with this team and just seeing what you got with that one. Now, the last name I'm going to throw out here is probably going to be the wildest to some extent, so bear with me through this one. Jalen Green of the Houston Rockets. If you're Houston, right, like, when you drafted Jalen Green, you expected him to be the centerpiece that you build this team around, right? Like the young guy that's like really going to be, everything's going to be structured around him, right? And it's actually ended up being Alperen Sengun, which, not to toot my own horn or anything, but you can check the files on that one. You can check the records on my YouTube page. I've definitely talked about Sengun during his draft year, and I did really hype him up. Shameless pats on the backside. Jalen Green is interesting, right? Because it feels, I don't want to say his value is at an all-time low, but it feels like since last summer, the Rockets have been really exploring the idea of just kind of letting him go to his next team, right? And Jalen Green's an interesting one because yes, he has not lived up to the billing of his draft pick, but he's also given you enough flashes of the guy that he could be, right? So if you're the Raptors and you have probably like no intention of just like immediately contending, like you're trying to build towards the future. Obviously you can argue how much of an immediate future you want that to be, but regardless, you are positioning yourselves to be better tomorrow as opposed to today, although I think he could improve you today as well. You could have the patience to look at a guy like Jalen Green, look at the physical gifts, look at the skills that are definitely there, but obviously need to be polished, need to be refined, and think to yourselves, and this is the joke here, I love any time that this comes up, but you could definitely look at Jalen Green and think, you can fix him. Imagine yourself as like that girl looking at like the fucking like Bad Boys up there that has like fucking 2 or 3 like good trends, and you're just like, yeah, he's like all these terrible things, but like I could fix him because he's pretty. That's Jalen Green, right? Oh my god, I know I'm gonna get flamed for that analogy in the comment section, but like, so be it. I thought that was hilarious. Regardless, I think you get the idea of what I'm stabbing at with that analogy and with the conversation in general. Look, Jalen Green has not panned out to be the exact player that a lot of people thought he could have been, but he's still young enough and promising enough that if you're a team that is willing to be patient with it, and if you're a team that has a good history and track record of developing players like the Toronto Raptors do, like you've hired your head coach to do. Remember, that was one of Darko's big billings, is that he's a developmental guy. He wants to raise players' ceilings. Look at the work that he obviously did in Memphis for that team. So why not? If the price is low enough, take a look at a guy like Jalen Green and think to yourself, this could really fill a need on the Raptors team, because it absolutely could. Like Jalen Green, if you can really get him to at least kind of scratch the surface of what he could be in the NBA, that is a player that fits tremendously well with your team, fills a lot of voids. Jalen Green could be the answer to a lot of questions for the Raptors. Yeah, I think that pretty much does it for me. Just let me know your thoughts on the 5 players I've thrown out here. I'm not 100% sure what time this video is going to go up because my school schedule around it is disgusting. But I'll try to have it up as soon as possible. Hopefully this video doesn't become like immediately dated upon it dropping. But hey, such is the life of a content creator, I suppose. Lord knows I have I've definitely experienced that at least once or twice in my time of doing this. Yeah, there's a good chance that this will probably be the last trade video that I do of the regular season, because I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get on camera on Thursday's trade deadline for any reactions to the actual trades. So it's been a slice with trade talk. I'm not going to lie. I'm quite excited to move on to just draft talk and look in some of these prospects. I know it's not billed as the strongest draft year by any means, and even to that point, I don't think there's been a name outside of maybe like a few that I've really heard that excites me in terms of the things that I've seen. But regardless, I'm gonna have a fun time going through these prospects, evaluating their games, and obviously posting that on YouTube for you guys to see. That was a very long-winded extra, so usual drill, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Other than that, folks, it's been JJ Buckets. It's been a pleasure, and I will see everybody next time.